The talk of Sioux Falls, 1140 KSOO.
316 here on the Talk of Sioux Falls, 1140 KSOO. Hey, coming up tomorrow, the Siouxland Library's book walk is from 9 to 11 at the downtown River Greenway Amphitheater. Beautiful little spot downtown Sioux Falls. Take a walk and read pages of 2 children's books along the bike path between the downtown River Greenway Amphitheater and Falls Park. The bookmobile is going to be there from 9 to 11, and Phil Baker will perform at 10. All ages are welcome down there on the Greenway. That's tomorrow from 9 to 11, so you're going to want to get down there for that. So I was noticing recently a lot of different news items regarding it's an issue that's been with us for a while, and that is the siting of livestock operations. But I think there's a bigger issue here, and that's what I want to talk about on today's P&L statement. But before I get to that, I just want to remind you that coming up after the break, we'll have the Common Man talking about Bartolo Colon and the Twins, and we will also have a discussion about how Sioux Falls is the 5th least stressed city in America right now. So stay tuned for that. But this issue of agricultural livestock siting, okay, is something that I've been involved with and watching and covering for a long time. I actually started getting into it in the mid-'90s when I was working a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in a little place we like to call Iowa. And Iowa at that time was going through this very same problem. That was on the cusp of the hog confinement operations really expanding into that state after they had blown up in North Carolina. And Iowa has always been the top hog producing state in the country. And the 3 counties that are closest to us up here in Sioux Falls, Lyon, Sioux, and Plymouth counties, were the highest hog producing counties in the country. Sioux County still is, which is just across the border. Sioux Center, that is the middle of Sioux County. It's just not that far away. A lot of those pigs come up here and they're slaughtered at John Morrell. But the debate was, and still is, how do you write regulations for where to put hog confinements? Should the decision lie with counties and local planners, or should it be uniform regulations across the state? And under that, there's a lot of discussion about safety, about environmental pollution, and the long-term sustainability of the business model, and all these questions. But ultimately, all of that comes back to one question: who should decide? Because all the other points are legitimate points, but if you can't make the decision at the top about who's going to really decide those things, then all is kind of lost after that. But it's not just ag, and I talked about this the other day in terms of wind locations, wind power turbines, and how to site them. And we're voting on that today in Lincoln County. If you are south of 57th Street here in Sioux Falls, you are in Lincoln County, and all the way down to Canton, and actually all the way down to Beersford. Down to Beersford is the cutoff line. So you're all voting today on this issue. Not this particular issue, but it gets to it. But I think that we need to start looking at these things seriously as a state, because it's not just hog operations, it's not just chicken operations, it's not just wind towers. It's also, how do you ultimately regulate for environmental issues such as water quality? You can't do that county to county to county to county to county. It doesn't work. And ultimately, what Iowa figured out after a few years of debate, research, and really tumult is that if it's going to work in the best interest of everybody, everybody has to work by the same rules. And that means statewide siting regulations, setbacks, water quality issues, pollution controls, all of that. And in South Dakota, of course, we're loath to regulate anything, particularly as a state. But I see this as really the state legislature really sloughing that back on the local folks who have to sit there and make these decisions, looking at their neighbors and they get caught in the middle of these conflicts, local conflicts, and it's not good. I mean, I understand that local government is good government, is the best government, it's closest to the people, and I understand that. But what they're getting put into are sort of existential battles with their neighbors, and they're not making good decisions based on economic development, and they're not making good decisions based on environmental regulation or even business future. They're doing it on emotion, and we've seen it time and time and time again. There was just there's a big controversy in Yankton County again about a series of hog farms, and some folks just pulled a bunch of permits because they got caught up in controversy. There's a news item yesterday, I believe, about Hutterite Colony wanting to expand their hog operation, and there is a story by John Holt, my friend John Holt with the Argus Leader Media, on a bill by Representative Mickelson, who wants to lower the threshold for the zoning votes at the local level from 2/3 to a half to 50%. All of which gets back to that core issue. Now, we've been through this before. We've been through this over and over and over again. In fact, the legislature more than 10 years ago had passed a law that would not allow local citizens to refer those decisions to a countywide vote. And then that went on the ballot, and of course that got overturned. But I just think we're spinning and spinning and spinning. We are not keeping up in the livestock sector of agriculture. And beef production is huge for us, but hog production could be much bigger. We have the grain, we grow all the feed, and then we ship it out of state. We import hogs to kill at the John Morrell plant because we can't make enough of them here. There's a huge opportunity. It can't be willy-nilly. You don't want hog operations in the wrong places. You don't want them where they can potentially pollute the air and the water, because they can. I've been in one. I've been in big hog confinement operations, and they're intense, and there's potential for pollution disasters in some of these operations. So they need to be regulated. You don't want to leave some of this up to local county officials. They don't often have the expertise. They often don't have the will to make these decisions. They'll take the path of least resistance if it's a fight between neighbors. Not everybody, but it puts these county folks in a really bad position sometimes, where they're forced to choose between what they believe to be a good business decision for agriculture and what might be not the best decision for one of their friends, relatives, or themselves. The legislature needs to come back and make a concerted effort and not just pass anything. You have to research it. You have to go state by state, see where it's working, see where it's not. It's clearly working in Iowa. Okay, Iowa's always been a big pig state, but they still are. And we're importing pigs from Sioux County like you wouldn't believe. I think the numbers at John Morrell are something around 18 to 20,000 pigs a day are slaughtered at John Morrell plant. Well, they're not coming from South Dakota. That money's going across the border. And that's fine. We like our friends in Iowa. They're close. They got the pigs. That's how it's going to work. If you're an advocate of locally family-owned operations, I understand it, but you should like this. You should like uniform regulations, because it doesn't give a corporation or a family corporation or a local entity undue influence on the zoning process, and it guards against personal gain by folks who are involved, land sales, anything like that, contracts, because things get pretty mixed up at the local level sometimes. And ultimately, it makes it more likely that a small operation can survive if you know what you're dealing with. And if you're an advocate of ramping up the livestock production in South Dakota, then you want to know the rules aren't going to change once you've made an investment. That's just the smart thing. And it's true whether it's pigs, cattle, chickens, geese, I don't care. Wind operations, if we're going to get serious about cleaning up the Big Sioux River, for instance, we need to have stricter environmental regulations on agriculture operations. That river is full of poo. And there's a lot of people working really hard to do it, but until the state decides to make the rules the same up and down the river, it's not going to happen. So you got to get the whole watershed working under the same operations. And that's how we're going to move agriculture forward and increase our livestock production, which we need to do. The state doesn't always know what's best for local government. They've certainly screwed up a lot of things for counties by tying their hands with funding. Look at law enforcement in Minnehaha County. It's a mess, and they don't allow them to increase revenue anywhere. But it's necessary and it's needed here. Agriculture continues to be our number one industry, and if we want to keep it that way and we want it to grow and our economy needs to grow in every city in this state, that's the kind of thing, uniform regulations, legislature needs to do it. If you agree with me, disagree with me, go to Lalley at KSO, Lalley Show on Twitter, or email me, Patrick at KSOO. You can follow us on Facebook at 1140 KSOO. Coming up next, we've got the Common Man. He's going to be talking about Bartolo Colon and some other stuff. And later on in the second hour, Jonathan Ellis from Marcus Leader Media. We're going to be talking politics. This is the Patrick Lalley Show on 1140 KSOO.
Hi,